So I'm going to talk a little bit about a sikha, Likutei Sichos, chelik tezayin. Sikha is for on Yud Shevat, which is the Yom Histalkus of the Friedrich Rebbe. And the day Yud Aleph Shvat is the day that I call us on the Siyas of the Rebbe. So we'll talk a little bit about the sikha to understand a little bit deeper, just to understand first the general idea. So the Likutei Sichos is like this. It starts off with the idea when the Rebbe brings down in the Geras HaKodesh Simul Chaf Zayin. That Alter Rebbe writes the famous letter after the Ptira of Mendel Haradoker, Vitebska, and on the day of the yard site, this Kol Masav V'Torasa V'Adasa Asher Ava Kol Yimei Chayav, all the work and all the Torah and all the service, the Ma'asim Tovim and the Torah and the Tefillah the person, the tzaddik, did throughout his life, Ma'asim V'Torasa V'Adasa, is there's an aliyah. And there's an aliyah, there's an elevation of that tzaddik's life. Alter Rebbe writes there in Tanya, in the Geras HaKodesh, that Chaya Tzaddik and Chaya Psorim, but Chaya Tzaddik is the moon of Yervava, which means that the life of a tzaddik is their spiritual life, their divine service, their holy life. And therefore, those who are connected with them, have a connection with them, and have a connection with them, Yatar V'Chaya, even higher than during lifetime. And in general, there's an aliyah, there's an elevation that occurs on the Istalbus. And this happens not only on the day that the person passes on that year when the person passes on, but the aliyah is, like the Rebbe brings down the Aura, brings down from the Chida, brings down from others, that there's aliyah every year. Every year there's an aliyah, there's an elevation, and not only is an aliyah elevation every year, but every year there's even a higher elevation. And the tziyun that the Rebbe is mitzayin is to Tanya in the Geras HaKodesh Yedalid. The Alter Rebbe talks about that every year there's a schachus, there's a new revelation of a new divine life force that enters into this world, and there's a schachus tmidius. And there was an oil that comes out of this world, the light that comes out of this world every year in Rosh Hashanah that was never existed since the beginning of time. And same also with when there's a stalkus, every time there's an aliyah, every time there's an elevation, by the time of the yard site, there's an elevation, at the time of the person's passing, the tzaddik's passing, there's an elevation even a higher aliyah. So to understand what exactly is Teirosei Avedosei, and what's the massive of Teirosei Avedosei, what is the actions of the Rebbe was talking about the previous Rebbe Yatz. What is that massive of Teirosei Avedosei? What is his actions and his Torah and his avodah in this world? So the Rebbe says you always have to look into Istaka V'Raisa, you have to look into the Torah. And by looking into the Torah that the tzaddik, that the Rebbe was bringing down, that Nossi was bringing down to this world, through that you can see what his tafkid, what he was doing in this world. And particularly the Maimer of Basi Lagani, which the Friedrich Rebbe gave out in honor of Yud Shevat, which eventually also, that Shabbos was actually, Tafshin Yud was eventually his Patira, that he passed away from this world. So that became the Maimer that's connected to the day of the previous Rebbe's passing, and also to Kabbalah Sadasiyas on Yud Aleph Shvat. So in the Maimer, there are two Nekudas, the beginning of the Nekuda and the end of the Nekuda. And this is the way the Rebbe starts off. And the end, the Maimer talks about Shmartim as a matzah, as a mitzvahs, that the mitzvah bal yala tachmitzana, the idea that a person should be zariz, a person should be with alacrity, should never push something off, but should do things in the right time, not hurriedly. That's a lot of the meher. The Torah of Hashem, a lot of the meher means you should lose the hurriedness, not doing things with lack of mindfulness, but when exactly is the time to do it, you should do it right away. So by Yashkim Avram Avoker, this idea of Zirzus, we learn from Avram, he woke up in the morning, it means that he went to sleep that night. before the Akeda because he had to sleep, but when he woke up because he at night. But the idea is of zuzas, of doing things with alacrity means when the time comes, you should do it right away. You should not procrastinate. That's the first Nakuda that's brought down in the Bible. That's the final Nakuda. The first Nakuda talks about the idea of that Hashem had a desire, and desire, as it's explained in Chassidus, that Atayva came from consciousness. That idea of desire comes from a place of the highest level of tainug, of just isness, without a reason. Reason represents already a place of lack. It's a want, a desire, not a place of chesar, not a place of lack. What was the divine desire? What did HaKadosh Baruch Hu want? Hashem wanted because he wanted, not because he needed. Needed is already, again, needed means that it's a place of lack. Reason represents something that's outside of itself, just because Hashem wants. And what was the want? Was the taiva is that Hashem should have a dwelling place. Lo yizbarach, for himself, a dira, which is a place of dwelling, a home, in the lowest realms of creation. And the diuk that's brought down, that the Rebbe brings down from the Maimer, is these 3 points. It's lo yizbarach, for him himself, kaviyach, HaKadosh Baruch himself, for Hashem himself, for the atzmusa yizbarach, for Hashem alone. The idea of dira means that it's kavua, that it's permanent, that it's a permanent dwelling place. It's not something that fluctuates and changes. And tachtoinim means that it should be specifically in the lower realms of creation. And really, the Sikha explains that these 3 things are actually interrelated to each other. That they're totally zavazah, they're dependent on each other. Because the idea of a dira means that it's a dwelling place, it's a permanent space. Anything, so there's, let's just say like this, so there's the atzmusa yizbarach, there's kaviyachol, Hashem alone, and then there's what is being revealed from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like the attributes kaviyachol of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the essence just is. The revelation is rooted in the essence. So it means the revelation, the gilui, something that's being revealed, the attribute, let's say, the revealing of Ein Sof, of infinity, or the revealing of koyach hagvul, revealing of finitude, or revealing the particular midah of chesed, of kindness, of gvura, restriction. Because the midah, this revealing, is rooted in the source, that means that there was a time that it wasn't revealed, and then it becomes a time that it is revealed. So even when it is revealed, there's a possibility that it shouldn't be revealed. The only thing that's a permanent, whether it's being revealed or not, is the essence itself. The essence itself sometimes is revealed. The essence could be revealed. There's a gila of the essence, or revealing from the essence. And sometimes there's a helen, there's a concealment of the essence, from the essence. But the only thing that's a permanent is the thing itself. As if. The thing itself is the only thing that's permanent. So when we say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to have a dira, wanted to have a dwelling place, which dwelling represents a kavua, something, not a dir's arai, but a dir's kavua, a dwelling, a permanent dwelling space for himself, that is automatically tied to the idea of lo yizbarach, to him himself. Because if it wouldn't be to him himself, to the essence of the creator, but to revelation of the creator, because revelation means that it's emanating from something, that by definition means that it could be emanating, it could be revealing, it could not be revealing, which means that it's not permanent. So the only permanent, the only way we could say that it should be a dira, that it should actually be a dwelling place, that's a permanent space, is specifically if it's actually lo yizbarach, it's actually for Hashem himself. So because it's lo yizbarach, because it's Hashem himself, therefore it can be in a way that it's a dira. The same thing also with the idea of tachtoinim in the lower realms. When we say that there's an upper realm, which means an upper realm, which means a place of revealing, a place that's in the world of gilui, in the world of revealing, In the upper realms, it's not Lo Yisbarach, it's not him himself. Because, in fact, like the Alter Rebbe writes in the Geras HaKodesh Chaf, which is the letter, one of the last Torahs, that and Nefesh HaShneila, one of the last Torahs that Alter Rebbe wrote before he passed on, Achav Dalet Torahs, which the Frierdiker writes about this Torah of Geras HaKodesh Chaf, that this is the Torah that the Alter Rebbe revealed even a higher level of Gila Likus, a higher level of revelation, more than everything that he did for the many years previous. The Alter Rebbe was 67, so all the years previously from when Shabbos, certainly when he became a Rebbe, this is the highest Torah that was revealed. And there's a Sikha that Rebbe writes that specifically a tzaddik, and every person, but even by certainly by tzaddik, certainly by nasi, when a person's reading the culmination of his life in this world, at the end of his life, that's when there's a greater revealing of the essence of the Torah, what the tzaddik wants to, the nasi wants to reveal. The Torah was revealed in Perikov, in Geras HaKodesh, is that the only place where there can be a revealing of Atzmusi Yisbarach is specifically, of the essence of the Creator, is specifically in the physical realm. That's why it has to be dafka v'tachtoin, dafka in the lower realms. Why? Because everything that exists outside the essence, so let's say the essence is the source, and then there's this constant revelations, and there's devolution of spiritual realms. Every realm within the spiritual realm is rooted in a higher realm, and the higher realm is rooted in a higher realm. So by definition, there's a constantly devolution from its source. It originates in one place. Imagine like there's a source of light, and then there's a light that comes out of the source of light. So the space where the light is more connected to the source of light is where the light is more intense. And as the light is gradually being revealed from that space of the original light, it gets less intense and less intense. So any space within the spectrum of this entire light is all, by definition, because it's a revealing from the place of the essence, is automatically a devolution from the source, from the original source. Where could the essence of the Creator be revealed? In something. This is called ilval. This is called cause and effect. So within the line of structure of the devolution of the light, there's the higher light and there's the lower light. But the lower light knows that it comes from a higher light, and the higher light knows it comes from even a higher light. And the highest light knows that it comes from the emanator. So once it moves away from the emanator, it's consistently being devolving in its intensity. But the essence cannot be revealed there. Where is the essence revealed? The essence revealed is specifically in the lowest. Why? First of all, the principle of the principle is the edge. At the beginning is edged at the end, and the end is wedged in the beginning. That's one principle. But the depth of that idea is like this, because the nature of physical reality, the nature of this world, is that it does not perceive itself coming from something. It actually labors under the illusion that it actually self-creates, right? That's why heresy is possible in this physical world, because the physical realm could be perceived as something that's self-creative, that it wasn't created at a specific time, but it's eternal. And the way we perceive this world, we could say that the world created itself, that mitzvahs matzmusay, that its existence comes from its essence. Now, this is the klipa of it. This is like the negative side of it. But the reason why physicality can say mitzvahs matzmusay, that existence comes from its essence, is because it's created from the atzmusay insoy, from the essence of the Creator, who's mitzvahs matzmusay, whose existence comes from its essence, because it's one and the same. Because the Creator is sort of the beginning and the end, which is the beginning has no beginning before the beginning, which means it's self-created. It's mitzvahs matzmusay. Its existence comes from itself. Everything that follows from its creation, from its original conception of the creation, everything that's evolving from that space is called the or, it's called the light. And in that light, there's many grades of that light. And then there's finally the place of the total darkness, which is the creation of the physical reality, which doesn't perceive itself as coming from a higher source of light. But that in itself means that it thinks that itself creates, because the source, the atzmios, the essence of the Creator, specifically created something that also feels itself as mitzvahs matzmos, that its existence comes it's from its own essence, because in the deepest reality, its existence does come from the essence, not from its essence, from the essence of the Boyer, the essence of the Creator. So these three phrases of Lo Yizbarach, that Hashem desires, as the Sava, Hashem has a desire, not a want, not a place of chesed, not a place of absence, but a want, because just Hashem wants. And at time, you can't ask a question you can't ask a question. There is no reason, it just is. Because there was this desire to create. And what was the desire for the creation? That it should be a dir b'dachtayim, which means a dwelling place for who? For the essence of the Creator, Lo Yizbarach. Therefore, because it's for the essence of the Creator, it could be something that's permanent, because the only permanent is something that always was and always will be. Everything else had a beginning, right? The Or Ein Sof, the infinite light, is not Or Ein Latchila. It's not the light that didn't have a beginning. It's a light that doesn't have an end, because it does have a beginning. The beginning is the Mar, is the source of the light. So because it has a beginning, therefore, in a way, it's not something that's permanent, because technically it can have an end. If it has a beginning, it technically have an end. So it's not Lo Yizbarach. It can be revealing of the essence of the Creator. And it can be a dira, it can be a complete everlasting edifice. It can't be something that's permanent. Because by definition, something that's permanent always is. And where could this reveal of Lo Yizbarach, a dira, where could it be a revealing of a permanent residence, which always was, and it's a process of revealing that it always was this way. Of the essence of the Creator is always present. Where could that specifically be? Only in this world, only in the physical world, which labors on the illusion that mitzvahs matzmos, that its expression, its existence is from its essence, is revealing the ultimate atzmos matzmos, is the ultimate Creator, the ultimate source of every old creation, which is the Creator Himself, which His existence comes from His essence. So these are these three things of the Sava that Hashem desires. What? That it should be a dir Lo Yizbarach b'tachtonim, and dir Lo Yizbarach for Dafka, specifically for Him, as a permanent residence. In the Tachtonim are all interrelated. It can only be a dira, it can only be a dwelling place only in Tachtonim, if in fact you want to make a dwelling place of Lo Yizbarach. Because Lo Yizbarach is always, and always has to be forever, therefore it's permanent. And forever has to be in a space that labors on the illusion that it is forever, and it's self-created. So these are the three things that are linked. Then the Rebbe goes on to explain how this works actually in terms of avodah. What does this mean in the avodas adam, in a person's avodah, in terms of a person's connection to their Rebbeinu Shalom, person's connection to Hashem? So the first thing is Lo Yizbarach. Lo Yizbarach means only for Hashem. That Dira Lo Yizbarach T'Tachtonim. So we're creating a dwelling place for himself. So when you're doing something for Lo Yizbarach, just for the sake of Hashem, it says that is the highest level of kavanah. That's the highest level of intention. That a person is serving Hashem not only not to get a manas l'kabel pras, to receive a reward, and not only to have lenenis b'nen hashchina, to have dveikus, to experience the dveikus of feeling Hashem's presence in your life, but the highest level of serving is to serve solely for the purpose of serving. So durchführen the kavanah. You serve Hashem because through you the kavanah will be fulfilled. The intention of creation will be fulfilled. So it's not how you feel. It's not what you think. It's because ani loy nivreisi el l'shamash l'koni. Not I am created. Ani nivreisi. I'm created l'shamash l'koni. That I am created. Why am I created? To serve Hashem. But the Rebbe brings many times in the Sichos. The Sichos that ani loy nivreisi. It's ending of our kedushin. Ani loy nivreisi el l'shamash l'koni. It's a double knot. I'm not created only to serve Hashem. That my tachlis, my service is like the Alter Rebbe actually writes in Tanya that the highest level of the chassid is Chassid M'Koineh. Chassid M'Koineh means I'm doing it for the sake of Hashem, because that's the way the kavanah wants. I'm Hashem's partner, and through me the kavanah is being fulfilled. What Hashem wants from the creation. That's the highest level. I'm doing it for Hashem. That's the highest level of Lishma. L'shem Hashem, like the Baal Shem writes. Lishma, L'shem, hey. I'm doing it for the Shem Hashem. This is the highest level. This is what it's brought down in many forms. And even the Mesilas Yesharim brings it down that that's the definition of a chassid. Someone that does something for the sake of Hashem. That the main thing is that the kavanah should, that the kavanah, that the higher intention should fulfill itself through you. That's the avodah, that's the work, that's what it means lo yizbarach. What does it mean, dira? Dira is the avodah of kviyas. Kviyas means that because dira means permanent, it's also my service is permanent. What does permanent mean? It's not dependent, because I'm doing it for Hashem, only for Hashem, so Hashem's will should be revealed in this world. It doesn't matter. It's not, so one day I'm feeling connected, one day I'm feeling davak, and therefore I want to put on tefillin. And therefore I feel like I should put on tefillin. And when I feel davak, therefore I want to learn, therefore I want to daven. I want to pray and I want to learn Torah. It's because I'm fulfilling the Eibishter's Ratzon. That's what I want to do in this world. I want to that the Eibishter's Ratzon Hashem's will should be fulfilled through me, because this is my posture of living my life. Because of that, I'm always doing what's correct. I'm always doing it, no matter if I'm feeling it or not feeling it, understanding it or not understanding it. It's in a way of kviyas. It's in a way of permanence. Because it's connected to lo yizbarech, because it's connected to the essence of Hashem. And we said before that what the essence of Hashem means that it always is. So in a person's avodah, a person's spiritual work, what does that mean? It always is. I'm always connected, and I'm always doing it. And this is the way it's coming through me. And where is it expressed? In which area in my life? Specifically in the tachtonim, in the lower aspects. What is the lower aspects? The lower aspects could be in the realm of the physicality of my spiritual activity. What's the realm of the physicality of my spiritual activity? Is that it could be in Torah, it could be in mitzvahs, and it can be in like how I express in this world. So that the tachtonim in Torah, the Rebbe writes, the aspect of a lower in Torah represents the idea of the actual halacha, which means you can learn Torah d'reish of Kabbalah schar, yagul Torah v'yada. You can learn Torah just for the mitzvah of learning Torah, to understand it, to learn it, to bring glory to the Torah itself. That's like the El Yonim, that's like the higher, like the more spiritual side of Torah, the more intellectual side of Torah, so to speak. And then there's Lasuk Shmaita L'Luvisva. The learning Torah for the sake of understanding how do we practice it in Tachtonim? How do we actually practice this Torah? That's one aspect. In the Maisa mitzvahs, in mitzvahs, there's action-based mitzvahs, and there's mitzvahs like you can learn Torah and ki'ilu hikar v'oila. That if when you're learning the Torah's oila, ki'ilu hikar oila. I'm sorry for whether this is relevant to all mitzvahs or dafke the korbanos. But the idea is like when you learn the Torah that's connected to that particular mitzvah, that even if it's mitzvah that's no longer applicable today, let's just say it only works with korbanos, with offerings. So you're learning the Torah of the mitzvah. So you're talking about the mitzvah, ki'ilu hikar, as if you did the mitzvah, as if you actually brought the carbon of the offering. But the bringing of the offering is in the level of the Torah. And then within the mitzvah itself, sometimes other mitzvahs, there's mitzvahs that are maisias, that are physical action. That's the tachtonim, that's like the physical level of that. And then there's mitzvahs that are more b'dibur. That the mitzvah, let's say, saying Krishna. The mitzvah is b'dibur, is with speech. So that's like a more refined form. So there's the mitzvah specifically focusing on the mitzvah itself, on the physicality of it, and there's mitzvah of the intention. Then, in terms of how this is expressed, so the Rebbe said this is also expressed in the work that the Friedrich Rebbe did, is very much connected to the world of chinuch, of Abatz Torah, for children, for children. That's like the tachtonim of the adults. That's like the lower elements of the adults. So again, in three ways this is reflected. That one thing that the Friedrich pushed, that in the world of Torah, people should become rabbanim, and they actually sent rabbanim throughout Russia, and then eventually through America. There should be actually rabbis teaching halacha. Kino mitzvah maisias, like sending shluchim to actually to do mitzvahs maisias. So boy mikvahs, etc. Moilent is to build mikvahs. This is like especially done in the old country in Russia. So that's like the physical action of the mitzvah, and the idea of creating chinuch, creating education for children, which in the scheme of things, when we're talking about higher and lower, they'll represent like the tachtonim, the lower elements of that, because they're young and eventually they'll mature into maturity. So these are the three things. This is basically what the Rebbe is explaining in the Sikha in terms of what the avodah of the Friedrich Rebbe was. Now the truth is that to go a little bit deeper, just cover Yud Shevat. Okay, this is the rest is already irrigation. This is feelings, and not to talk about the Rebbe himself, because Chassidim used to say it's via katz cooked with a little lana. It's like a cat looking at the moon. Not like a cat that's looking at the moon that understands what he's looking at, but a cat looking at the moon doesn't understand what you're looking at. So this we can't talk about. This is reminding us again. But in terms of what we saw, in terms of what was revealed. So the first thing is lo yisbarach. So oisvin the kavana. That was something that the Rebbe pushed them and demanded very strongly. Chassidim should have this mindset, this posture of oisvin the kavana. And because of that, there should be a kviyas, that it should be permanence, and not fluctuate in feelings and having a bad day, a good day, it's not working out. If this is the kavanah, this is where you have to be, this is what you have to do, you should do it. It's interesting that in this idea of permanence, also you find that everyone's told someone that the reason why I never went to Israel is that since the passing of the previous Rebbe, which means since he became Rebbe, he never left his place, which means he never left New York. And it's known that even when he went to camp, when he went to visit a few times, he visits the Catskills, and sometimes you have to go through New Jersey. Later on, it was understood that he never made sure that they go through New York, so he shouldn't leave the state. But never left the state. Never left the state of New York. Let's talk more about this idea of the three things that it talks about Torah, mitzvahs, and chinuch. That in the Torah, mitzvahs, and chinuch, that in regards to Torah, in regards to mitzvah, in regards to chinuch and education, they were specifically connected to tachtonim. So the Rebbe brings down the Sikha that the Friedrich Rebbe wanted that the Levites should have smicha, they should become rabbanim. But that's just the general understanding that eventually you learn Torah to become a Rav, and that's connected with the Tachtoinen, connected with Allah and Ma'aseh. But the truth is that it's more boimek. It's actually more deep. So there's a letter that the Rebbe wrote about the Sefer of the Melo Plotkin Mazeva. I'll go through this very quickly, but the letter is very fascinating. So there's a Sefer called Berur Halachos, which they printed for the Melo Plotkin, and it's on Sugis Hashas. And the first siman, he talks about this idea. We'll do this very quickly about Amir L'Akum, about regarding Amir L'Akum, which generally, in general, is talked about in general on Shabbos. Whether you're allowed to tell someone a non-Jew, which means a non-Jew means someone that doesn't keep Shabbos. Is there a prohibition to say, tell a non-Jew to do for a Jew? You're Jewish, and it's on Shabbos, before Shabbos. Are you allowed to tell a non-Jew someone doesn't have the Shabbos? Actually, it's also to keep Shabbos. Someone doesn't have the obligation to keep Shabbos. Are you allowed to tell them to do a work for you? So it's a shvus. You're not allowed to do that. Now, what's the reason why you're not allowed to do that? So Ramallah brings down three reasons. One is from the Rajva, which is that it's the reason why you're not allowed to do this in Tam Shlichus. Because the reason of Shlichus is that the non-Jew becomes your shliach, becomes your messenger. So you're not allowed to cook, let's say, on Shabbos. You're not allowed to tell a non-Jew to cook for you on Shabbos. Or let's say do another, let's say open a light or something. You're not allowed to tell him to do that. A light maybe, if it's for himself maybe. But let's say a real malacha that you're not allowed to do, you're not allowed to tell him. Because there's a concept of shlichus, the concept of a messenger. Now generally, the Gemara brings down in Kedushin, generally there's that there's that shlichus does not apply to Bet Noach. It doesn't apply to a non-Jew for a Jewish action. But the and also there's a concept that they shlichus dvar there. That the Gemara says that that there's no shlichus dvar there. You can't make a messenger besides going to Elah. You can't make a messenger to do a sin for you. You can't say this messenger, go eat treif, not kosher for me, and therefore the Mashalayach will be chayav. The person that sent the message will be chayav. Because if the teacher is telling you, or the master is telling you, who do you listen to? If the student is telling you, the master, who do you listen to? So therefore, the Mashalayach, the messenger didn't really make the shliach a shliach, or the shliach really did it on his own. Whatever, different ways out to understand it. But over here it's not a driver because it's an akum. The person is not responsible, and this is what the Rajva writes, and there's a ktsas on this. It's in the Kufpeh. This is what they want. So that's one reason. Shlichus. That's the reason of the Rajva. The second reason is it brings up from Rashi and the Zohar, which is davar davar. That your words, like the Torah says, you have to be careful with your words. The way you speak, since Amir is like speaking, so even your words should be careful. You shouldn't tell a person to do action for you on Shabbos. That's the second reason. The third reason is, like the Rambam brings down, is Kadesh Shabbos Kalavenav. That by telling a non-Jew to do an action for you, it's going to weaken your whole demeanor of how you think about Shabbos. Now, if in the middle of the simon, Ramallah writes like this, he says, look at Alter Rebbe Shulchan. It's Simon Reish Gimel, where he brings down the first and third reason, which is the idea of shlichus as a messenger, or because it shouldn't be kalvein, it shouldn't be light in your eyes. Shabbos, therefore you're not allowed to allow to do work for you. But he doesn't bring around the idea of davar. Okay, this sefer was sent into the Rebbe, in Tafshin Chav Gimel, and later on, Tafshin Chav Dal, but before we get to the letter, there was actually on Shavuos, Tafshin Chav Dal, the Rebbe actually answers the question of the Tzarachim that the Ramallah asked. How come the Rebbe doesn't bring the idea of davar davar? Why is not bring these? Why does he bring the reason of shluchas, of messenger, and he brings the reason? Not brings the reason of shluchas, and brings the reason for kal be'enov. So first, the Rebbe learns to understands why these two reasons are needed, because the shluchas will only apply if the mishalech, the messenger, the Jew, actually nominated the person. But if he doesn't on his own, maybe he could have pleasure from his action. The shleitei kal be'enov is that it shouldn't be weak in your eyes. Shabbos is generally a reason that we find only when there's a mitzvah when there's a prohibition that's only a light prohibition. The Shabbos is chomer. Shabbos is a very harsh prohibition, so why would a person make it kal? So everyone says that could be quote unquote that it must say that it's based on the Ran, same idea what the Ran brings out in Psachim. That the reason why the Torah says Bal Yirah Bal Yimatzah, the reason why the Torah says that you're not allowed to even see chametz, find chametz, even though Isser is just to eat chametz, is because because since chametz is something that you generally eat throughout the entire year, so if the Torah says you're allowed to see chametz and have chametz in your home, maybe you're going to come to eat it. So the same thing also said that this Isser Zmani, this temporary prohibition, which means on Shabbos you're not allowed to cook, you're allowed to cook on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So since you're not allowed to cook on Shabbos, it's possible that it'll be kal be'enov because a person is lo b'dilim with it. A person is not refraining generally from cooking. That's the two reasons. That's why the Alter Rebbe needs both reasons. And then why doesn't he bring the third reason? The answer to the question, he says basically because that reason will apply only essentially comes from the idea of David, which means on Shabbos your words have to be correctly. Even though the Isser would the source of the Isser is actually from Shabbos, so therefore the Amir al-Rach will also be before Shabbos. But the origin of the prohibition is because on Shabbos itself, and therefore when Alter Rebbe is talking about before Shabbos, he omits this second reason. And this is what the Rebbe gives the teretz. And the truth is, this teretz that the Rebbe gave on this Tzarech Chinam and Alter Rebbe for Rav Plotkin is actually a letter that the Rebbe already wrote to the family, to my Baba and to his uncle. And it's hard to decipher because I only have the Ksav. But you can see that the Rebbe is talking about the same thing. He talks about the reason why you need both new reasons, and he talks about before Shabbos. But what's interesting is in the letter, which is the letter that's dated Chadal Tevis, the Rebbe writes like this: Yehi after he gives a bracha, a blessing from the Sefer that was already published. Rabbanos Hakvudim Baruch Chaytzai Tzir L'Shetichya. Yehi Ratzon Asher Gam Chidushim Eilo Yagbiru Es HaHakara Yehi HaHakara Oikna Limud Asher Oikna Ratzon Vatoiv Emes Hu Halimud B'Yashis V'Shakotayim Mafasuk Shmait Limud B'Hildas L'Achim Ma'aseh. That may be the will of Hashem. The also should be that these Chedushim that are printed, these novel interpretations of the Torah that are printed, should be an inspiration to understand how we should learn Torah. That the way that a person should learn Gemara is that he should learn Lasuka Shmaita Libidel. So a person should learn the focus of trying to figure out what would eventually take the Gemara all the way down to understand how it translates into halacha. Then the Rebbe writes clearly, Kavanasi. Shaloiki shnei afanim acherim apilpul, asher itzavchu kamoi le'yatzubo. Not like the old style of pilpul, which are with the style of pilpul of just dialectics. As far as dakas, also not to get to like refine svaras, delicate analysis of the idea, which have no nafkamin ala halacha. But la'amoid ala sfar anachoyne vayeshara kim libchot haderech hayeshara v'anachoyne kanal. Like the proper way to learn is to learn this way, that you're always going with derech hayeshara with clarity to get to the point of understanding all the shakavtar in the Gemara, all the back and forth in the Gemara, to eventually to refine it to get to the point where you understand how does this manifests in the world of Allah. The Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya and Shulchan Aruch, and he brings out also Kuntzes Chaim from the Rebbe was saying. And then the Rebbe said, I'm going to add a few artists, add some notes because of because it's very transferable to me. And he adds those notes that eventually the Rebbe spoke about in Tavshkot Dalet. Which is fascinating that the Rebbe is basically saying that his shitta, his understanding of how a person should learn, not just that a person learns Gemara for many years, or Bacha, learns Yeshiva, learns for many years, and then comes a time, and he's going to get married, so then he takes out smicha, he takes out abanos. We're saying that the whole structure of learning, the whole way the way a person should learn, is that a person should learn with the focus, not to pull him necessarily, and not dakus to gesmaris, refine analysis. That only serves if it's getting you to the point to understand, okay, this is what Abaye says, and this is what Rava says, and this is what Nachman says, this is what Chizah says, and I understand what Rashi says, and what Tosfos says, and what the Rashi says, and the Ritu says, and the Ran says, and I finally refine it, the Shittas are Rishonim. And then if you want to go into the Shittas are Achronim, then when you finally to the didactic point, to the Svara Yeshar, if it's correct understanding, you're going to end up understanding that what is the tachlis of this entire process of the learning is actually to get to get to the point of the halacha. So this is even a deeper understanding of the tachtonim. We talk about tachtonim in Torah. It's not only that a person learns for a certain amount of years and also learns halacha to get rabbanos so they can be a rav, but what the mahalach halimud, the way of learning, that the Rebbe was connected to this way of learning. You can see this throughout. But this is the way the Rebbe writes. This is clearly the way that a person should learn, is to learn with seichel yishar, with clear understanding, to get to the point and to get to the bottom point of the tachtonim of how all this tremendous amount of shakavitaya of back and forth gets to the understanding, to the clarity of what's the halacha of this thing. What is the actual practice, the Jewish law is. This is the tachtonim in Torah. This is one aspect. The same thing also, the aspect would be with regards to tachtonim, with regards to mitzvahs. That we don't have to say, but it's kol asvar malim is that it's all Kodesh and all over that for the Rebbe, one of the ikar things that a person, when people are becoming Balei Tshuva, people are coming connected to Yiddishkeit again, and a lot of people are very spiritual. I know some personal stories that the hayra that they got from the Rebbe was to learn Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, to learn actually practical, very detailed law, and Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, which means like the very technical things: how you wash your hands, how you wake in the morning, how do you dress, which shoe goes on before what, which shoelace do you tie before which, how do you tie you put on your jacket, your right hand or left hand first. It's things that are mamash very, very, very detailed. And this is also a chiddush. This is also because it's lo yizbarach, because it's connected to the atzmus, the Torah's atzmus. Because it's the atzmus. Atzmus is an halach in Torah. Where do you see the atzmus, the essence, which is not about the gilui, not about the shakmatay, but where do you see the essence of the Torah is in the halacha. In the Hashem zu halacha, that's the elu divukim chaim. There's divukim chaim. There's a lot of elikim. Elikim is lashon rab. There's a language of plural. So in the back and forth, it's elu divukim chaim. It's this thing. It's that thing. It's divukim chaim. But when you want to get the Dvar Hashem, the essence, the Dvar Hashem, what is the word of Hashem? Is halacha. Dvar Hashem, the way it's manifest in its actual practice is the atzmiistic expression, because that's in practice. And therefore, when a person wants to become spiritual, wants to be connected, and a person has a she'ifa to grow, the yisoid of the whole she'ifa has to be the Shulchan Aruch, has to be the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. That's the second nekudah. The third nekudah that ever brings out in the Sikha, which is the idea of chinuch of children, which is tachtonim. Just talking about Zayda Ramela, just say a very deep anecdote that I heard the shame my Baba, Chaitzel, Mela's wife. She once went into Yechidus, told the Rebbe like this, that the Alter Rebbe made from Goinim Chassidim. Alter Rebbe, Chadorim, Alter Rebbe's Chassidim, Isaac. The Alter Rebbe had huge, big geniuses, big heads, and he made them Chassidim. That was the Chiddush of Alter Rebbe. He said then the Mittler Rebbe came along and made Chassidim from Yigalite. That Kiyudu, the Mittler Rebbe was very involved between Yigalite and Chassidus, the two Yigalite from meet each other, so like they on the street. He started farms and started farming, but he wanted to be Chassidish Yigalite, and they should learn Chassidus. So the Tzemach Tzedek made from Rabbonim Chassidim. So it's known that Tzemach Tzedek was a big poisek, and many Rabbonim used to come to Tzemach Tzedek. So he made Chassidim from Rabbonim. Their Marash's son didn't have a lot of Chassidim, as many as the Tzemach Tzedek, but the Chassidim that he did have, some of the big Chassidim that he had were very wealthy. And she said that the Marash made Chassidim from Balabatim. Balabatim, people that are working people, wealthy people, he made Chassidim from them. Their Rashab started Tepchetzim, started Yeshiva. So he made Chassidim from Bachar. The Fiediger, like the Rebbe writes in the Sikh here, and the Fiediger was Isaac with Tenegish Masam, the children, which is even a Shlav lower, so to speak, a lower level in terms of mental capacity. So he made even Chassidim from children. That was like the Fierch, in comparison to the Gedolim, to the adults, the young were the Tachtonim, the younger ones were Tachtonim. And she concluded and said that the Rebbe was making Chassidim from women. This is the word. He said that the Rebbe smiled and appreciated the word. As an oimik to that, because this is a shlam Tachtonim. Well, that's not saying women are Tachtonim, but in terms of the connection, of women's connection to Chassidus, I could say even more that, but this is a whole other conversation. We could say even more that even from Goyim, that this is a chiddush in Tachtonim. That when Tachtonim, when it's lo yizbarach, and that's musa yizbarach, and it's the essence of Hashem, and it's kriyas, it's permanent, then it has to permeate every single detail in creation. You can't say these are people that can't understand. These are people that are not understanding. These are people that don't have a shaykh, don't have a connection to Chassidus. They don't have a shaykh to Likus. These people are not educated, or these people are outside. If it's really lo yizborach and it's dira, then it has to be the entire Tachtonim, and the entire world has to be transformed. This you see clearly in the Torah of the Rebbe and the Shifas of the Rebbe, certainly from Yud Shevat of Yud, Tafshin Aleph. That you see that the whole tachlis of the seventh generation is to bring down the Shechina, to bring down the drawdown of the Shechina in the presence of the physical world, that the entire physical world will be transformed and to be elevated as the coming of the beginning of Mashiach.